revealed. 3 spine-chilling parenting horrors with unexplained curses and sinister secrets in the heart of Maple Grove. Something wicked lurked behind the manicured lawns and neighborly smiles. Rachel, a 32-year-old single mother, felt the creeping unease as she stood over the stove, stirring a pot of spaghetti. It was supposed to be a simple evening, but whispers lingered in the air like shadows. Families had begun to vanish. The bright-eyed laughter of children faded into the silence of empty streets. It was the kind of place where parents should feel safe, but the very sidewalks felt grimy with fear. The local diner. Between sips of bland coffee, Rachel's neighbors exchanged hurried glances. The topics of conversation turned dark. Kids, once staples of cheerful chatter, were now missing, slipping away without a trace. Rachel clenched her fists, dismissing the anxiety that prickled up her spine. Maybe it was just the stress of finances tightening her world like a noose. She glanced at Tommy, her son, blissfully unaware as he colored on the kitchen table. Little did she know, a dark presence was inching closer. Then came the message, a buzz from her phone that sliced through the air like a knife. An anonymous sender had left something at her door. With hesitant breaths, she opened the door to reveal a package resting on her welcome mat. Felt wrong, foreboding. Rachel's heart raced as she brought it inside. Inside lay dusty heirlooms, a box, yellowed lace, a chipped figurine. Names she'd never heard trembled on her lips. But what sent chills down her spine was a crinkled paper she unfolded, revealing a rickety warning, steeped in folklore. Parents who fail to protect their children are cursed. Days turned into nightmares. Tommy had been a spirited boy, but now he stared blankly at the walls as if they whispered secrets he couldn't fathom. Panic twisted in Rachel's gut. She reached out, but he was too far away, drifting into a realm of shadows. It was wrong. Too wrong. She rushed to the town library, pages turning frantically as she searched for answers. What she found was horror wrapped in local history, tales of rituals and curses that thrived when the parent-child bond was shaken. This wasn't merely fear, it was a descent into madness. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She needed allies, but her neighbors wore smiles that now felt like masks hiding their true nature. They were slipping away, every friendly face fading into the backdrop of an eerie fabric, one that allowed darkness to thrive unnoticed. As Rachel called for help, officials rolled their eyes, dismissing her with raised eyebrows. She was alone, cast aside in this suburban nightmare. As desperation clawed at her, she decided to run. She couldn't stay in Maple Grove any longer. Night cloaked the streets as she gathered Tommy, clutching his hand tightly. Suddenly, a laugh, innocent yet chilling, echoed through the dark. It was Tommy's laugh, but twisted, lingering in the air like the scent of decay. It dawned on her, wherever they went, this horror followed. With shadows clinging all around, Rachel dared to question everything, her heart racing. In the suffocating darkness, she could only wonder. As a mother, what was she truly prepared to face? The streets felt alive, twisted with anticipation as Rachel pulled Tommy close. The world spun around them, the air thick with unspoken dread. Every rustle of the leaves seemed to echo like laughter from unseen specters, mocking her pitiful attempts to escape. "Mommy, can we go home?" Tommy's voice was a soft whisper, filled with a frightened innocence. Fear crunched through her like frozen leaves, but she couldn't show it. "No, sweetheart, not right now." She tightened her grip, guiding him down the shadowy street. Her instincts screamed to turn back, to seek warmth and comfort within familiar walls. But Maple Grove was no longer a refuge. It had become a hunting ground. With each step, fear coiled around her heart like a serpent, squeezing tighter. She remembered the stories she had read, parents just like her, who had lost their children to the darkness. What if the curse had already begun? A low hum filled her ears, a dreadful serenade of silence punctuated by distant whispers that felt almost tangible. And there it was again, the laughter. A childish laughter, breaking through the heavy night, ricocheting off the walls of her sanity. It wasn't just in her head. It seemed to ripple through the air. Tommy turned, his wide eyes reflecting confusion and something else, something darker. "Do you hear it, Mommy?" he asked, his innocence tainted by fear. Rachel nodded, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. "It's just the wind, buddy." But every cell in her body screamed otherwise. They hurried along the street, toward the edge of town, seeking the safety of the woods that bordered Maple Grove. The trees loomed overhead, twisted and gnarled, like skeletal fingers reaching toward the sky. It felt like they were stepping into a storybook that twisted the familiar into the unimaginable, a woods that devoured children whole. Ahead, faint lights glimmered. A flicker. Fireflies? No, the movement was too erratic, darting wildly in the darkness. Rachel squinted, her heart pounding. Was that laughter again? It drew closer, creeping toward them like a phantom, slippery and ungraspable. "Mommy, let us go back." Tommy pulled at her arm, panic spearing through his voice. She took a steadying breath, but it felt as if the air had shifted thick with the scent of something rotten. "No, we need to keep moving." The lights danced just beyond the tree line. In that moment, curiosity wrestled with dread. What if there were others? Maybe children who could help Tommy. Maybe she wasn't alone in this battle after all. She pulled Tommy along, her pulse quickening with each step toward the dying glow. Suddenly, a voice echoed, deep and gravelly, like stones grinding against each other. "You shouldn't be here." It resonated through the trees, wrapping around her like a cold fog. Rachel's heart raced as she turned, searching for the source. But the shadows did not shift. They only deepened, swallowing her surroundings. "Tommy, stay close," she hissed, her voice trembling as she scanned the dark, trying to discern friends from foes in her chest. A bone-deep realization dawned. It wasn't just the woods that were disturbing. It was the very air she breathed, heavy with secrets that whispered of loss. Something watched them, lurking just beyond reach, waiting for the moment to strike. The childlike whispers grew louder, wrapping around her. She stumbled backward, colliding with a tree, its bark rough against her skin. Tommy clutched her leg, eyes wide with terror, but then his gaze drifted, a serene calm blanketing his little face. "Mommy, look." He pointed, and there it was, an apparition of other children, translucent and glowing, standing in a line just beyond the trees, eyes hollow yet filled with an inexplicable hunger. It was a sight that turned her blood to ice. "Tommy," she gasped, crouching to pull him closer. But he stood resolute, drawn to them as if enchanted. They want to play. The ground beneath her felt alive, pulsating with a life of its own. The shadows gathered, and dread twisted like vines around her throat. Rachel could only think of one thing. How far would she go? To save her son? With one last frantic glance at the ghostly children, the flickers of light dimming into darkness, Rachel braced herself for the depths of terror that lay ahead. But what if joining them was the only way to protect Tommy? The realization struck. She was running out of time. In that split second, standing on the precipice, questions surged in her mind like a storm. Was she prepared to face the unholy bargain that lay stretching before her? The whispers grew louder, darkness thickening, and in that moment, the house lights of Maple Grove faded into nothingness, the echoes of her heartbeat overshadowing even the whispers. What would it mean to save him? The ghostly children stood silently, their hollow eyes drilling into Rachel's soul. It was as if they were absorbing her fear, feeding on it like hungry little monsters. Tommy's fingers loosened from her arm, his small frame swaying slightly, entranced by their spectral allure. "Tommy, we need to go." Her voice was sharp, desperation clawing at her throat. But Tommy only stared, mesmerized, as if the very essence of those lost souls reached out and pulled him in. Something moved in the corner of her vision, a shadow darting between trees. She turned sharply, adrenaline surging. "Stay with me." The laughter rose again, a chorus of delighted shrieks, through the tangles of branches and thickets, echoing off the distant trunks of trees. The childlike glee should have been innocent, but it oozed with malice, twisting Rachel's stomach into knots. "Tommy, come on." She grasped his hand tighter, jerking him backward, but another haunting smile from the ethereal figures seemed to tether him. His little feet rooted to the ground. He looked up at her, his expression floating between terror and delight. "Mommy, they say it's fun." Rage blossomed within her, overwhelming the fear. "They're not your friends, Tommy," she shouted, her heart pounding like a drum. "They're sick. They want to trick you." His face faltered, uncertainty bubbling beneath his earlier bliss. "But they're just kids exactly," she pressed, frantically searching for a way to break this spell. "Lost kids. Kids who need our help. They want you to join them in their darkness." The ground beneath them rumbled, the trees stretching upward as if trying to flee the unseen horror. Branches crackled, and a gust of wind swept through, making the whispers almost tangible. "Mommy, I'm scared." The innocence in his voice shattered her resolve, an exposed nerve in the fabric of her heart. What if she hesitated, fear creeping back? What if I can't bring you back? The apparition of a girl with ghostly blonde hair and a flickering white dress stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light that could pierce through shadows. "You don't need to be scared." Rachel, the voice was soft, comforting, yet it dripped with something sinister. "You can stay with us forever." Rachel's breath hitched. No, I can't, Mommy." Tommy called again, pulling lightly at the grip she had on him. "Let us go." But as the children moved closer, a barrier of whispers wrapped around them, thickening the air until it felt like swimming through molasses. Rachel's vision blurred as shadows danced closer, tantalizing and terrible, filling her thoughts with nothing but endless night. She could feel the curse looming, ready to swallow them. A million questions assaulted her. What if they were her only chance of safety? Or were they the very embodiment of her nightmare? Suddenly, a shot of clarity pierced through the haze. "No!" Rachel screamed, shaking her head violently. "You are not taking my son." With a sudden fierce resolve, she yanked on Tommy's arm, pulling him back as the grip of the whispers faltered. He blinked rapidly, like a child awakening from a dream. The glow of the other children dimmed, frustration filling their hollow eyes. "Mommy, I don't want to." His voice was full of fear now, pleading, and she felt a fierce protectiveness surge through her, igniting an inner fire. "Tommy, listen to me," she urged, her voice breaking. "Run. We need to get home. Now." With all her strength, she tugged him into the depths of the woods, dodging around tree trunks and branches that reached out like claws. The laughter grew distant, twisting into furious howls of rage as they fled. But she felt it, the darkness was not done with them. They burst back into the open air, the trees receding behind them, but the whispers still howled like drowned souls searching for reprieve. Had they truly escaped? "Mommy, are they gone?" Tommy whimpered, and she turned to face him, her chest heaving. "I don't know," she admitted, "but we can't stop now." As they hurried down the path, something sharp flickered in the corner of her eye, a figure standing at the tree line, grinning unnaturally, the hollow eyes watching. Rachel's heart sank as recognition dawned. "Those kids," she whispered, the despair tightening around her throat. But before she could tread another step, she heard it again, the laugh, echoing ominously, now clearer than ever. "Come play with us forever." And when she turned back to Tommy, her entire world tilted sideways. He was blinking, the strange calm returning to his eyes, and the question loomed in her mind with growing dread. What if he no longer wanted to escape? Rachel's heart raced as she looked at Tommy, who now wore an unsettling smile, his gaze directed towards the distant trees. It felt as if he was drifting away, pulled by an invisible thread toward the sinister laughter that danced through the air. "Tommy." Her voice trembled, fighting to hold back the panic rising in her throat. "Talk to me. Remember our games? Remember the fort we built?" He blinked slowly, and for a heartbeat, She saw a glimmer of recognition in his eyes, but it quickly faded into that distant, eerie calm. "I like it here, Mommy," he said softly, as if the forest held a warm embrace that was inviting and terrible at once. "No, no." She gripped his shoulders tightly, shaking him gently. "Listen to me. This place is wrong. Those kids aren't like you, they want to trick you." But he just stared back, his innocent features expressionless, as if her words were lost in the wind. The grotesque laughter erupted once more, cascading over them, sending icy tendrils of dread snaking down Rachel's spine. It felt alive, vibrating through her bones, whispering sweet nothings meant to enchant and entrap. Join us," they said, taunting and sweet. Rachel stepped back, a sense of urgency jolting her senses into overdrive. "We need to go, Tommy. Now." She backed away as she tugged at his arm, but he resisted, casting a longing look toward the children who needled through the trees like quicksilver phantoms. "Mommy, why don't you want to play?" His voice was soft and pleading. A shot of fear pierced her. "Because they don't play fair," she shouted, almost desperate. "You're my boy, and I will fight for you." As she turned again, her heart sank. It felt like the forest itself was closing in around them. The branches loomed overhead like the skeletal hands of the damned, clawing for their escape. "You don't have to be scared," a familiar voice cooed again. It was the blonde girl, her eyes glinting in the dim light of the fading day. She held out a tiny hand. "We'll have fun forever, forever," echoed the others, and the implications curled like smoke in Rachel's mind. "No," she screamed. "I want to let you take him." She pulled Tommy back with all her strength, gripping his hand like it was a lifeline as they stumbled back against the coarse bark of a tree. The shadows thickened, swirling with rage, igniting a heightened panic in the air. "Join us." The voices became a cacophony, filling the woods with madness. The laughter seemed to tear at the fabric of reality, clawing at her sanity. "Run," she shouted, not giving him the chance to answer. She shoved him forward, propelling them through the underbrush, both of them gasping for breath. Behind them, they could feel the shadows shift in undulating mass, desperate and hungry. Every step felt like a battle against the tide of despair threatening to drag them down. Suddenly, Tommy stumbled, the grip on his hand slackening as he nearly fell. "Mommy!" Rachel whipped around, and in that instant, she saw them children emerging from between the trees, their hollow eyes now gleaming with malevolent delight. They moved with eerie grace, as if not quite touching the ground, laughter escalating from soft giggles to wild, screaming chaos. "Join us, it's fun forever," they chorused. "Run, Tommy. Please." Her voice cracked, but there was no hesitation. With a surge of adrenaline, she yanked him upright and pushed forward. But the forest itself seemed to conspire against them, roots curling beneath their feet, branches reaching down like gnarled fingers. They stumbled into a small clearing, breathless. Rachel turned quickly, blocking his view of the encroaching figures. But in that moment, she realized the truth. The shadows were spreading, the laughter was becoming a roar, and Tommy was not the same. His eyes reflected the darkness, swirling with a profound depth that made her blood run cold. "Mommy, I think I want to stay." The realization hit like ice water. The forest was not merely a trap, they were prey now. And what if Tommy had already chosen? "Please, Tommy. Fight. Remember me. Remember us." But as she pleaded, his expression shifted, and the smile returned, wide and unyielding. "We can have fun, Mommy." The ground rumbled beneath their feet, a low growl echoing from the depths of the shadows as they closed in. Rachel knew they had to move, but as she turned to flee, they stood not behind her but around them, encircling their escape. An unsettling thrill of cold glee surged through her veins somehow. She had led them right into the heart of their terror. What if escape was not the end? What if this was only the beginning? With dread pooling in her stomach, she clutched Tommy's hand tightly, prepared to run. But a voice cautioned her. The hollow laughter reverberated louder in her ears, carrying a chilling question. What if the darkness had already taken root? And where would they go when they ran? The forest pressed in around them, every shadow seeming to pulse with dark energy. Rachel felt the weight of unseen eyes watching, 1,000 whispers growing louder as she strained to hear the sound of Tommy's breath above her own rapid heartbeats. Panic clawed at her throat. She could feel the cold sweat trickling down her back, the earthy scent of damp leaves mixing with the stench of dread. "Mommy, I don't want to leave," Tommy said again, his voice heavy with something she couldn't identify. Was it fear or something darker? "Tommy, please." Frantic, she shook his shoulders. "You don't understand. This isn't a game." Her voice cracked, breaking in the oppressive air of the clearing. She looked around, desperately scanning the shadows. They were tightening, closing off any potential escape. "Why?" he murmured, tilting his head as if considering her words, the innocence once etched in his features replaced by a surreal detachment. "They want us to play forever just like we used to. Not like this. Not with them." Rachel snarled, almost pleading. A surge of anger rushed to her head, mingling with desperation as she felt the edges of control slipping away. "They're not your friends, Tommy. They want to steal you from me. They want you to stay here forever." The laughter erupted again, echoing off the trees. Forever, forever it swirled around them like a dark fog, growing heavier, suffocating. Tommy blinked, seemingly lost in thought, before turning toward the children, eyes wide with a strange admiration. "Maybe it would be fun, Mommy?" "No, don't say that," Rachel shouted, her heart racing. "You're my son. We can't let them win." She swung him back into her line of sight and saw it a flicker of doubt beneath his resolve. That flicker was hope. Rachel seized the moment and gripped his arm. "Remember our stories? The adventures we had?" But just as she pleaded, the shadows lurched closer, whispering secrets, showing memories that felt like forgotten echoes of laughter. Rachel's heart sank even deeper as she felt the ground shift, roots rising like snakes yearning to ensnare them. "Join us," the words dripped with honeyed malice from the phantom children. "No," she shouted again, stepping back with Tommy. "Stay with me." The boy looked back at her. "I'm scared, Mommy." Rachel kicked the ground, frustration spilling over. "Then fight. Fight against it." She could feel the dread rise in her throat like bile. "You have to fight." But the boy's doubt was now edged with something more sinister. His eyes glazed over as he turned again, entranced by the children beckoning with elongated fingers. "Maybe I should try just a little." Her world shattered. He was slipping. "Tommy, don't. Fight this. Fight them." The grinning children coalesced into a vortex, delighting in her desperation. "Mommy, stop being scared," he said, voice almost mechanical, devoid of the spark that usually lit his eyes. The echoes of laughter flared to life, sending shadows stretching around them. The ground growled again, a low rumble shaking her bones. "Forever, Tommy, forever." The children's voices now harmonized, a sinister choir carrying the weight of ancient promises. Her heart thundered in terror, but Rachel felt a surge of fierce determination. "You want him? You'll have to take me too." She spun around, clutching his hand tighter than ever, eyes darting to the nearest shadows. She squared her shoulders, bracing herself for an escape attempt. "We can run. Follow me, Tommy. We can break free together." Just as she turned toward the divide in the trees, she felt a tug at her back, a whisper at her ear. "You can't leave us." The voices trailed a chilling resonance that echoed in her mind. Tommy, his hand felt cool, detached, matching the spilling darkness around them. Something primal screamed in her chest. This was not a game. This was survival. But then she caught sight of a figure at the edge of the clearing. The blonde girl stood among the shadows, her smile now razor-sharp, eyes glinting with eerie triumph. Rachel drew in a breath, holding back fear as her gaze bounced between the girl and the encroaching darkness. "Tommy." But the boy's expression was resigned, as if he had wrestled with the choice already. His grip faltered in hers. As he began to release her, the shadows surged, a tidal wave of laughter consuming her ears. "Join us, join us." And without realizing the implications, Rachel felt the ground beneath her dissolve, a chilling thought anchoring in her mind. Had Tommy already made his choice? As the world started to blur and darken, She realized that horror wasn't just in the forest, but in the helplessness of a mother losing her child. Where would it end? What choice would she have to make to reclaim her son? The laughter crescendoed as she was too late. Would she even recognize him if she conquered the shadows? And then everything went dark. Rachel awoke in a disorienting swirl of muted colors and muffled sounds, her body pinned to the damp earth. The oppressive weight of the forest lay heavy around her. But the laughter, oh, that laughter felt different now, more distant yet dangerously close. She gasped for breath, her heart racing as she pushed herself upright. Tommy! Her voice cracked, the name ripping from her throat as terror coiled tightly in her chest. The clearing was empty, shadows shifting like restless specters. She strained to find traces of her son, to hear his familiar whisper, but the cacophony of the forest engulfed her. The lighter tangled roots beneath her fingers felt less like a ground and more like a cage, tightening around her wrist as if the earth itself conspired against her. With frantic determination, she pulled away, tears blurring her vision, mixing with the dirt on her cheeks. Tommy! She screamed again, her voice swallowed whole by suffocating silence. A sudden, chilling breeze rustled the leaves overhead, a reminder that she was not alone. The whispers returned, weaving through the trees like a hunter stalking prey. Join us, the slithering calls twisted in her mind, filling her with dread as she staggered to her feet. Each step felt unsteady, the ground shifting beneath her like quicksand, tugging at her resolve. She clenched her fists, fighting against the oppressive atmosphere, searching for the path back to Tommy. But where had he gone? What choice had he made? Then, out of the corner of her eye, she spotted movement. Shadows darted through the underbrush, twisted figures that mocked her desperate search. Her heart pounded louder, pounding in her ears like war drums. The girl, the one with the razor-sharp smile, emerged from a cluster of trees, her eyes glinting like broken glass in the fading light. "Isn't it time to play?" The girl's sing-song voice danced on the wind, beckoning Rachel closer. "No." Rachel stepped back, shaking her head. "Where is he? Where's my son? Tell me." "Oh, he's just fine. He's learning the rules." The girl laughed, and the darkness danced with her glee. "You should join us, too. It's fun once you let go." The laughter began again, upbeat, innocent, but twisted deeper with every repetition. Rachel felt the shadows warping, a sense of horror licking at her heels. "Let go of him," she shouted, tears of sheer anguish falling down her face. "You can't take him." "But he wants to play," the girl taunted, stepping forward, her smile widening. "He's one of us now. Forever." Rachel's blood ran cold. Tommy, he was choosing madness. "Tommy, fight it!" Rachel screamed, desperation tightening like a noose. "You're stronger than this. You're my son." But the shadows seemed to offer a sweet, alluring comfort, the promise of eternal fun, and Rachel sensed Tommy was slipping further away. Each laugh vibrated with the threat of permanence. With a deep breath, she turned from the girl, focusing on the wilderness that closed in around her. "I want to let him go." In that moment, she spotted a flicker of movement beyond the trees. A path, barely visible, jagged and crooked, winding deeper into the heart of the forest. Hope surged within her like a fresh wind, and she took off down the trail, heart racing, ignoring the echoes of laughter trying to reel her back as she ran. Branches snagged at her clothes, the air thick with malice. "Join us," they whispered, voices growing louder, the laughter more frenzied, reaching out like hands grasping for her. With every ounce of strength, Rachel pushed forward, the underbrush tearing at her skin. She wouldn't let them win. She couldn't abandon Tommy to this nightmare. The thought of him trapped in this twisted game fueled her desperation as the path narrowed. She caught a glimpse of movement ahead. Was it Tommy? Faces flitted in and out of view. Children standing at the edge of the shadows, watching, waiting. "Tommy!" she cried. "I'm coming to get you." The laughter shifted, turning dark and stormy, three echoes crashing together. But right then, all the voices morphed into one chilling chant. "You can't escape us. You're already part of the game." Rachel felt a wave of icy fear wash over her. but she had already crossed the invisible line into darkness. With a final, defiant cry, she leapt toward the figures, the shadows closing in around her heart hammering like a wild drum. But as she reached William, the ground trembled like it was alive, and she suddenly understood the forest had prepared a welcome of its own, revealing a terrible choice she didn't expect to face. Would she seal her son's fate and lose herself in eternal play? Or could she break him free from this twisted embrace, even if it meant confronting the nightmares rooted in her very soul? The whispers grew louder, drowning out her thoughts. Join us. Forever. And then she saw the truth of those shadows, and the weight of that revelation sank into her bones like lead. Rachel's pulse raced as she plunged deeper into the woods, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The shadows whispered her name, each one a haunting reminder of what she risked losing. As she pressed forward, the laughter grew more distorted, echoing off the trees like a twisted symphony. The path before her twisted unnaturally, branching in ways that felt wrong. Panic settled in her chest as she fought to remain focused. "Tommy," she called again, her voice breaking under the strain. She stumbled over roots, the ground sticky with decay, the air heavy with a stench that burned her nostrils. And in that moment, she sensed it. The forest itself felt alive, watching her. The bark of the trees seemed to shift, faces contorting into grotesque grins, mocking her despair. "Join us," they hissed, their whispers wrapping around her like a serpent. "Shut up," she cried, swallowing down the bile rising in her throat. A sharp pain pierced her side as she cut through the underbrush, a reminder of the forest's hostility. A thorn snagged her shirt, drawing blood, but she hardly felt it. All that mattered was Tommy's safety. Ahead, the laughter intensified, weaving a chaotic melody that felt almost familiar. Were those other children? Was he really playing? She ran faster, ignoring the darkness pooling around her. But as she rounded a bend, the world shifted. What lay ahead was not a path but a gathering of figures, silhouettes swaying like smoke in the dusk light. The children stood in a circle, their faces obscured, bodies moving in sync with the dreadful rhythm of laughter. She could feel their gazes pierce through her, and dread settled over her like a cloak of ice. "Tommy," she shouted, her voice strained with hope and terror. The figure in the center, taller than the rest, turned. It was Tommy, or at least it looked like him, but his eyes were hollow, devoid of recognition. His smile twisted unnaturally, gleeful yet sinister. "Mommy, come play," he beckoned, and the others echoed, "Come play forever." Rachel's heart sank. The laughter that had once sounded innocent now thrummed with a dark promise, a binding ritual she could barely comprehend. "No, you're not my son. You don't want this." The circle tightened, shadows swirling around them. The darkness bled into her, suffocating and intoxicating. Rachel stumbled back, her thoughts spiraling. Could this truly be Tommy, lost to her forever? But then, she saw it a glimmer near Tommy's feet, something that didn't belong. A small locket, half buried in the dirt. She recognized it immediately. It was his. Rushing forward, she grabbed it, heart leaping as the ghosts of the children shrieked. Touching the locket sparked a connection. Her son's face flickered in the darkness, snapping her back to the moment. "Tommy, you have to fight. Come back to me." Suddenly, the laughter morphed into anguished cries, shattering the facade. Tommy flinched, and for a moment, clarity flashed in his eyes. "Mom, help me," he gasped, reaching for her. But the shadowy figures surged forward, pulling him back. "No!" Rachel screamed, desperation fueling her. The forest roared around her, branches clawing at her skin, trying to drag her away. She had to reach him. She had to save him, or they would both be trapped together, forever in this twisted game. With a surge of adrenaline, Rachel hurled herself toward the circle, forcing her way through the clutching darkness. "I'm coming, Tommy. Hold on." Yet as she lunged, the very ground beneath her erupted, the laughter echoing ominously. "You can't escape, you're one with us now." In that moment, the truth shattered her resolve. Was it too late? Would she lose Tommy to the shadows forever? As she fell, her screams swallowed by the cacophony, she felt the chilling fingers of despair closing in. What price would she have to pay to retrieve her son? And what hidden darkness would she have to confront within herself? The pulse of the forest throbbed with anticipation. The shadows gathered closer, and Rachel realized that their final game was just beginning. Rachel fell, her heart pounding in her ears as the ground swallowed her whole. The laughter morphed into a monstrous growl, vibrating through the earth and into her bones. Darkness enveloped her, and she hit the ground hard, pain radiating through her body. When she opened her eyes, she found herself in a small clearing, illuminated dimly by a sickly green haze that pulsed like a heartbeat. The laughter faded into an unsettling silence, leaving only the rustling of leaves and the faint echo of children's voices in the distance. She was alone. The circle of children and Tommy were gone. "Tommy!" Rachel gasped, scrambling to her feet. Desperation clawed at her throat as she scanned the misty terrain. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, darting between the trees. Then she heard it. A soft whimper, unmistakably her son's voice, tearing through her despair like a beacon. "Mommy, help me!" She stumbled toward the sound, the ground shifting beneath her feet as if it had a mind of its own. The trees leaned closer, their branches stretching out with gnarled fingers, eager to ensnare her. "Tommy!" she shouted, her voice echoing in the oppressive silence. Each step felt heavier, as if the very air was fighting against her. The scent of damp earth and decay thickened, seeping into her lungs. Just then, a flash of movement caught her eye. From behind a large oak, a twisted figure emerged, its features obscured by shadow. She froze, fear rooting her to the spot. "Leave now before it's too late," it rasped, its voice a hollow whisper that sent a shiver racing down her spine. "Where's my son?" Rachel demanded, heart racing. The figure reached out a skeletal hand, pointing deeper into the woods. "He is close, but you must choose. Stay for him or leave now. This forest demands a toll." Panic froze Rachel's thoughts. Leave? Abandon her son? What toll? She stammered, feeling the panic claw at her sanity. Craves the warmth of a heart. The figure's eyes, dark and empty, bore into her. "Stay and you will never escape. Your heart will feed the shadows." "No!" Rachel shouted, clenching her fists. "I want tea, let him go. I want tea." The figure's form seemed to dim, merging with the darkness around, but its voice lingered. "If you surrender to the shadows, he may yet be saved," and then it vanished, leaving Rachel alone once more. The idea clawed at her, what if she could save Tommy by sacrificing herself? "Tommy!" she screamed, her voice breaking. "I'm coming. Just hold on." She pushed forward, fear propelling her legs, the whispers of the forest amplifying the tension. She had to trust she was headed in the right direction. As she plunged deeper, the laughter began again, more mocking, more sinister than before. Rounding a corner, she stumbled onto a large clearing. Here, the figures of the children appeared again in a tight formation, but one silhouette stood apart. Tommy was there, his face twisted in anguish, eyes wide and pleading. "No, Tommy!" Rachel cried, as the shadows warped around him, inching closer. Suddenly, the trees creaked, and the ground quaked. The clearing pulsed with energy, vibrations echoing through Rachel's chest. She felt the forest responding to her defiance, ready to pounce. "Mommy, don't leave me!" cried Tommy, the fear in his voice igniting her determination. But the chilling reality struck her. To save him, she might have to succumb. What sacrifices lay ahead? What darkness awaited her inside the heart of the forest? Before Rachel could respond, the shadows lunged at her, and she braced for impact. What fate awaited her in this twisted game? Would she fight for her son's freedom, or become yet another whisper in the woods? Rachel felt the shadows close around her, a cold, clammy mist that gnawed at her limbs. Panic surged, locking her muscles as the darkness threatened to overwhelm her. Instinct screamed at her to run, but she couldn't abandon Tommy. "Mommy!" His voice echoed, bending and twisting like the branches above. She lunged forward into the shadows. The air grew thick, palpable, as though it wanted to suffocate her. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears. "I'm here, Tommy. Stay with me." She pushed through the shadows, the oppressive weight dragging her down, clinging like wet cloth. Suddenly, sharp barks punctuated the silence, and a group of spectral figures materialized, a pack of phantom children. Their faces obscured, features smudged by an unnatural blur. Yet their eyes glowed with palpable hatred. They encircled her, giggling mercilessly, mocking her struggle as they pointed fingers that seemed to stretch impossibly long. "Leave him," one child spat, its voice a cruel melody. "Join us instead." "No," Rachel screamed, retreating, heart slamming. The forest was alive with pain, with sorrow, with darkness. She felt their laughter clawing at her sanity, pulling her towards despair. Fighting the urge to submit, Rachel pressed on. "Tommy, I'm coming." The trees twisted, their branches barring her passage like skeletal hands. The ground vibrated, as if the very earth were alive and watching her every move. Then, she caught sight of him, her son, still trapped, surrounded by a pulsating void that seemed to feed on his fear. Desperation surged through her like adrenaline. She had to reach him. With every ounce of strength left, she dashed toward Tommy, weaving through the throng of giggling shadows. "Get away from him," she yelled, her voice cracking like thunder. The laughter faltered for a brief second, momentarily surprised by her rage. But as she reached out to him, the void transformed, expanding violently as if the forest itself was collapsing inward. "Mommy!" His cry pierced through the chaos, pulling her heart like a taut string. Rachel Dove, fingertips grazing Tommy's, and everything exploded into a blinding flash of white light, shattering her senses. For an instant the laughter ceased. When her vision cleared, she found herself back at the edge of the clearing, the trees whispering and sneering once more. But Tommy was gone. Gasping, Rachel collapsed to her knees, the earth cool against her skin. "Where is he? Where did you take him?" she shrieked, fury and despair mixing in a toxic whirlwind. A deep, echoing voice surrounded her, dripping with malice. "You cannot take what is mine. Rachel, is your love strong enough for the price? This forest thrives on hearts like yours." Rising carefully, she scanned the gloom, her pulse racing. "What price?" "He will be yours again if you surrender to the shadows." Rachel recoiled, heart pounding. The specter from before appeared, more distinct now, its gaunt eyes revealing a chilling truth. "Your heart, its warmth will save him, or you can escape, leaving him behind. Choose wisely." With each word, the forest pressed closer, a suffocating embrace. Rachel's world split. One path led toward the void of despair, and the other Tommy. She cried, but what choice would she make? And in a sudden surge of courage, she took a step forward, toward the darkness, heart racing with the knowledge that her answer was near. But did she truly comprehend the price she was about to pay? Cries echoed in the distance, a mix of laughter and sobs as the forest waited with bated breath. What did it mean to sacrifice? Would Rachel lose herself to save her child? Or would they both be swallowed in the end? The shadows danced, eager, ready to claim their due. Rachel's heart thundered as she faced the choice before her. She could feel the weight of the forest, pressing down like a heavy cloak of despair. The air was thick with whispers, choked with the laughter of the children that turned her blood cold. "What price?" she gasped, every breath desperate and heavy. "You know," the specter hissed, its thin lips curling into a wicked smile. "The warmth of a heart, given willingly, can pull him from the abyss." The shadows around it quivered, eager and insistent, as if they understood what she knew deep down, that her love, her sacrifice, could save Tommy. "No," she shouted back, fear rising like bile. "I won't let you manipulate me. I won't let you take him." Every ounce of her body screamed to run, but a piercing scream rent the air, her son's voice echoing through the trees. "Mommy, help me!" That cry shattered her resolve. "Tommy!" she screamed, urgency igniting a fire within her. He was here, within reach, but the laughter crested like a wave, threatening to drown her. The shadows coiled around her, cold and suffocating, trying to pull her deeper into their fold. The specter leaned closer, its hollow eyes boring into hers. Listen to him. He needs you, but the cost will be high. Will your love endure? With a surge of clarity, she felt her motherly instinct awaken, a fierce determination carving through the mind-numbing fear. What do I have to do? She demanded. Just tell me. Join us, and he will return to you, but you will be claimed by the darkness. The figure whispered, its voice a silk-threaded lure. You will never leave. In that moment, the reality of her choice crashed over her. It would mean losing herself, becoming just another whisper in this wretched forest. But would it save Tommy? A whirlwind of thoughts spurred her forward. Suddenly, she turned, running deeper into the gloom. I won't let them win. I won't let this darkness steal you from me. Fear propelled her. She had to reach him. Yet, the shadows lunged, barring her path. Whispers twisted through the air. You belong to us, your heart is ours. No, Rachel roared, pushing against the darkness, breaking through the mocking laughter that echoed in her ears. She could see him now, faintly through the swirling shadows, the outline of Tommy, lost but still there. Mommy! He reached out, his tiny hand brushing against a wall of darkness that shimmered like oil. Her heart shattered at the distance between them. With every step she took, she fought against an unseen force pulling her back, the shadows tightening their grip. Hold on, sweetheart, she cried, racing toward him, fighting to keep hope alive. I'm coming. The laughter of the phantom children crescendoed, a terrible chorus filling the air. Yet through it all, she felt a flicker, a bond of love that surged and resonated like electricity, coursing through her veins. Tommy, remember our games? The forts? The picnics? She poured everything into those memories, hoping to reach him. With tears streaming down her face, Rachel closed the gap, and in that moment, she felt a connection blossom, the warmth of her heart inflating with a fierce light. I love you, Tommy. Never forget that. She surged forward, her hands outstretched. Keep fighting. I'm right here. Suddenly, it felt like the world exploded around them. Darkness rippled and cracked, the shadows recoiling as if burned. The laughter shrieked in agony and dread. No, you cannot do this. The shadows writhed, coiling, desperate to cling to their prize. Tommy! Rachel yelled once more, and with every ounce of love and fear intertwined, she lunged. Their fingers locked, and in an instant, the bond ignited, light spilled out, blinding and purging the curling gloom. The laughter halted, a sudden gasp of horror filling the forest. Join us, they whispered in disbelief. The shadows began to dissolve, retreating from the fire of her love. Tommy's terrified eyes flickered with recognition as he clutched her hand tighter, a magical strength cradling them both. Together, they ignited a brilliant light that shattered through the veil of darkness. The whispers turned to cries as the forest around them trembled. The trees creaked in anguish. With a final push against the shadows, they broke free, the tendrils of darkness fading behind them. Suddenly, they were back at the edge of Maple Grove, standing on the familiar street where everything had began. The sunlight flooded down, warm and bright, and the eerie silence lifted, replaced by the distant laughter of children playing in the distance. Rachel fell to her knees, pulling Tommy close, her heart pounding with relief. You're safe. We're safe. She sobbed into him. Relief cascaded through her. Tommy looked up at her, his eyes sparkling, free from the shadows. Mommy, I was scared, I know, my love. But we're together, and that's all that matters. She squeezed him, feeling the weight of her love wash over her, finally at peace. As they stood in the sunlit street of Maple Grove, Rachel smiled through her tears, tasting the sweetness of life. The curse had been broken, but it had come at a price. She would carry forever a reminder of the darkness lurking at the edges, and the love it took to keep it at bay. They walked hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next, closer than ever, knowing they would always fight together. united against any shadows that dared to intrude. Now, if you've enjoyed this journey, don't waste another second. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let everyone know how much you love this conclusion. Don't hold back, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your input matters. And for the love of storytelling, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support for the channel and keep this narrative alive. Don't leave it to chance, act now.